Good evening. We are live with Voice for Advocates podcast, live streaming every Friday night. We have a discussion reviewing everything that we've gone through the weekend and week. And I want to go ahead and just start off with some introductions. I am Stell Bailey with 540 Brevard. Libby?
Go ahead.
Libby Levette, Volusia Brevard County Environmental Alliance founder.
Elizabeth Baker, I pick up litter and proud Fight for Zero volunteer.
Christopher Childs, I'm a citizen of Titusville and a local business owner.
So we're going to get into the discussion of the hearing yesterday with the right to clean water. We live streamed that across multiple platforms. There's a lot of legalese discussion and talk that may have gone over a lot of people's head. So I wanted to start with what was your takeaway from the hearing yesterday?
Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's
resident. You and Elizabeth, I feel like you guys probably are most directly affected by this hearing.
I think the main takeaway is I think the city's going to keep pushing it. It sounded like from the hearing that they were looking for a good explanation on why they got summary judgment on them in the first place, in the first hearing. And they're trying to set up the appeal. So they're trying to get details for each one of their points that they made in their hearing, in the first hearing. And they want to get explanations on that. So then they can take it to the appellate court and tear it apart. Whereas really the first hearing basically said, who cares about the rest of your points? You don't get, as a city, you don't get to object to all of this stuff. Your job is to put it into your charter. And so I think they're really just trying to set it, even if they get, they also, and it sounded like they really wanted another rehearing. They wanted 2.5 hours, only had scheduled for 45 minutes. I think they went for an hour. But I think they still wanted to go have another hearing for 2.5 hours to be heard. So I don't know where it really stands and what Judge Polk is going to do, but it's going to be interesting. What do you think, Elizabeth?
I think that number one, I mean, it's clear that the city is absolutely adamant, to me anyway, that they do not want to amend that charter. I mean, it's pretty clear to me that they do not want to do that. And for me, I think, to what end? What is the ultimate goal of that? And the ultimate goal of that would be to not hold polluters accountable. And we all know what has happened in the city of Titusville over recent years, and even lengthy years. So I don't know. I listened to a lot of, it was like they were trying to confuse everyone, including the judge. Them bringing up what happened in Orange County, I found really, really frustrating because it's not the same thing. And anybody watching, please, know that what happened in Orange County was a completely separate thing. That was the rights of nature. That was preempted by the state. And now we are to granting citizens rights. And, I felt insulted, quite honestly, by the attorney with his saying basically that the people of Titusville were too dumb to understand what they were voting on. I was personally insulted by that. And afterwards actually went and spoke to several people that live in Titusville that voted on that measure and asked them, hey, do you know what you were voting for? Do you understand what clean water means? And everybody that I spoke to was very, very clear. And we're talking people from age range of 25 to 80. I mean, they knew exactly what they voted for. There was no confusion in that. So, again, I think that we got, to borrow a phrase still, a lot of word salad. And, there's just this distract. And they know that they continually have tax dollars coming in. And they know they can even raise taxes if they want to. And the citizens that are bearing the financial burden of fighting this in court, like they're taking the heat on this hard, and God love them, they have fought and fought and fought and stood up for us all. So I don't know, it's frustrating.
Yeah, I think they keep bringing up that Orange County law because there's this little piece in this amendment that says that you can bring compliance on behalf of a citizen or the water. And I think that shouldn't have been in there. They definitely should have gotten that out. But it's also covered under severability. So you can strike that one piece very easily. And because it also says that a person can bring on behalf of another person, or on behalf of yourself, a citizen of Titusville can bring it. So all you have to do is strike that through, and it's fine. And then they argued yesterday too that clean water, and what is clean water? And they tried to argue that it's more stringent than the state and federal, but really it's not. It's the same. I think the lawyer on our side said that it's the same description, that clean water is the same definition as what the state of Florida has for clean water. So right. I don't think that's, because they were saying, well, if you sever that, well, what's clean water then? But that was such an invalid point. It's ridiculous that they keep bringing it up. Yeah.
So my next question regarding this topic is, who are the people you think would be the most against the right to clean water? I can start if you would like. For me, I think it would be developers. I think it would be the polluters. The number one are the polluters. Anyone who is polluting our waterways. And I'll just call it, in Titusville, space industry, Department of Defense, and anyone that has anything to lose financially or to be held accountable. I know, working in this realm with pollution and environmental health, the polluters are always escaping any kind of responsibility, and they can go 30 years cleaning up the same contaminants and it's fine, and they can continue to pollute with a different contaminant. So, Libby, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thought is, who's the biggest polluter? Our government. There's the big push, right? That's why Titusville's fighting. I mean, it's not a far stretch to say, if we're holding polluters accountable, who are the polluters? Titusville's one of the number one polluters in Brevard County. Developers, for certain. Anyone who makes their money based on development, and I don't want to get the shoe thrown at me here. Realtors, real estate agents, they need properties to sell. They're usually very friendly and loyal to the developers. Financial institutions are also usually very conservative and support the developers. They're making them all the money. That's where their money is housed, in those financial institutions. You've got, very well, you've got the space industry. We've got FWC, the municipal wastewater systems, and the mining that's going on in Florida. It's insane, all the cuts that we have to overcome. But right now, as far as Titusville is concerned, the city of Titusville is fighting this tooth and nail because they know the next step is another lawsuit against Titusville. And this time it's one with actual teeth that can actually accomplish getting a waterway cleaned up. A lot of these lawsuits, the money doesn't go to solving the problem. It goes to a specific agency. It goes to a victim, but it doesn't go to cleaning up the waterway. So this is actually going to help us clean up the pollution.
Yeah, I agree. I think the city has a lot of culpability, and I think it doesn't stem from that they want to do it, or I think it stems from, and I don't want to be mean or anything, but it just, they didn't keep track of certain maintenance things that probably needed to be done. And they're behind the ball on it. And I think this would have been there have been a big difference, and they wouldn't be fighting this case right now if they had, when the group came to them and asked them about making an amendment about clean water, if they would have worked with them, if they would have said, we want to do this too, let's have a special meeting to discuss it, because we are serious about this too. So, why don't we work together on this? I think that would have been a lot different than, I don't know about this amendment. I think you need to tweak it. Thanks for coming. I don't think you're going to get the petition signed. I think that's really what they thought was, you're not going to get enough people to sign. So let's just push this back. Like we keep pushing it. And now finally that they've had some change in leadership on one of the teams there, they're finally trying to do something about it and being proactive. But this is a little late though. And it's good to see that. And I know they don't want to be swimming in sewage themselves. They have kids and everything. They all have people, they live here. I know they don't want it. I just think that it's just, they have so many other fires they're trying to put out, because there are so many developers coming in here now with the space, center. And, of course, they're probably putting pressure on them too. And I know there's developers putting pressure on city council. And I'm glad to see the development, but we need to be cognizant of what our infrastructure needs to be, and take care of things that we need to take care of. And like I said, I think they wouldn't be in this position if they just tried to work with him, and yeah, we wouldn't be.
You're
here.
so right, Christopher. We tried. Sean Stauffer drew the line in the sand. He wasn't having it. It didn't matter what we said. We could have came with a blessing, a gift tied in a bow with all the solutions that would have cost him nothing. He could have opened it in a corner. No one would have seen, but he would have said no, because it would have came from us. And that's the problem. The management allowed that to go on. And you have to, in my opinion, I'm just going to call it like it is, the fish stinks from the head. I believe Scott Larice needs to go. He allowed this to continue. He allowed this environment of, I don't know how else to say it, but just hiding information and being deceptive and not being transparent and flat out lying. Forget about not being transparent, flat out lying to the community. Scott Larice needs to go. And it really does seem like they truly are trying to do better. And I want to give them that. They're going to have to pay for their transgressions at some point. But we still need to move forward. And I really appreciate Kevin Cook being there. But he can't be the only one. He can't carry this across the finish line. We need a complete team. And we need Scott Larice to go. I'll get off that bandwagon now. But I really think it's important to say that.
So a couple of the meetings ago that I attended, one of the things that I had to say to the council was, it's not your job to protect the city from the people. It's your job to represent the people. And the people voted. 83% of the residents in Titusville that voted for a right to clean water. They knew what they were voting for, and their job is to represent the people. This is not representative of what the people wanted. And so what if it brings lawsuits? The people also understand that if they sue the city, then basically they're suing themselves. The people understand that. What the people want is clean water, and they want to be able to not just sue the city of Titusville. That's not what that isn't what the goal here is. The goal here is to be able to hold polluters in general accountable.
Yeah, I think to go to what Libby was saying is that I've seen this with city council and him. I don't know what happens behind closed doors, but I wish there was them being critical on their staff. They need to, just because you're being criticized doesn't mean you're doing a bad job.
Right.
They have to be told, hey, I've had people work for me, and I've hired and fired people, and I'm always honest with them on how I think they're doing their job. It doesn't mean I don't like them. It doesn't mean that you're a horrible person. And them hearing this right now, if any of them are watching this, don't think that we think you're an awful person or anything, but just we think we're being critical of you and we're trying to help. It's not that we're think you're a bad person. We just think that here's some ideas of how to do the job better. So, and I think they don't get that, and they definitely don't get it public. I don't know if they get it in private, but they definitely don't get it in public. And I think that's part of our perception of, all right, this is how it's being run. We don't see anybody being critical of anybody. If someone makes an obvious mistake, we never see that. We see them giving out awards all the time, but we don't see them saying, this is where we need to do better, because they think they're going to open themselves up to some litigation or something. And maybe that's true, but maybe that's what we need. Is so then if someone you do get sued because someone did something wrong, maybe you won't do it that way again. Maybe you'll do better next time. So
you got it right. They don't want to make an admission because of the risk of litigation. They are so litigation wary that they're walking on eggshells. And when, truth be told, what the attorneys are telling them to do is make no admissions. They're instructed by the attorneys not to make admissions. So in their defense, they're kind of required to do that in a way. So it's hard.
Awful.
So to move us along, we're going to just wrap this discussion up, and we're going to talk about what residents can do about their vote not being certified. There's oftentimes that we talk about the issues here on these lives, but we want to present solutions, and we want to present some action items. And I'll start. I'm going to put on the bottom of this screen a address. If you guys want to write it down that are watching, there is Speak Up Titusville. They're the ones that are taking this on in court. They could really use donations for their legal fees. My other thing is show up when it counts. Like yesterday, I was extremely impressed because we got tons of people on that hearing. They were in the hearing, and then also they were watching it live all throughout social media. And that's what it takes, because, the more people that are watching, the more that the light is shining on the whatever is going on, the better. I wish I would have had that for my case with the same exact judge. And if there is anything moving forward, we will certainly be pushing that out and asking people to support us that way, because it is so important. Write your representatives. You can write your city council members and let them know how you feel about the situation. And then my other suggestion would be pledge. Every single person watching this stream could pledge to get 10 right to clean water petitions signed, and we would have nearly 50,000 petitions done. If you only pledge to do 10, 50,000. And that's just in my group alone with the 4,500 members. Now, if you combine all of our viewership, that could easily get up to 100,000 people. And if I live stream it to the 60,000, we could even get higher. It's really as simple. We already have somebody in the group that has taken the initiative to print those petitions, go to their neighbors, go to their families, get the signatures, and then mail it to the appropriate mailing address.
And that's the address on the screen, right? So
that is the address on the screen is for Speak Up
that's
Titusville.
Speak Up Titusville. So that's for the legal donations. Speak Up Titusville needs your funds. This isn't going away. Chris was right too about them trying to create a judgment now that can be appealed, because the last one, didn't go their way. So they're just trying to get some meat to give up for fodder to the appellate court. So that's all that is. But he needs to be paid. I know that he has been working overtime and putting in extra time on this, and he's going to have a lot more work to do. And he did a great job at that hearing, by the way. He actually was the more elevated conversation. The other attorney didn't hold a candle to him. It was just a bunch of BS that he was just jumbling around. It didn't make any sense. And then he would get so frustrated because Mr. Grosso would make perfect sense and actually quote case law and quote statutory guidance. And all he could do was get frustrated and shake his head because he had nothing better. It's really frustrating, and hopefully the judge will do the right thing.
I had 3 more suggestions. One was be sure to sign up for our newsletter. That's where we have we're going up to 70K subscribers. And we barely ever send out emails. We only send it out when, for instance, what happened with the hearing yesterday. We're like, sign on to this. We need as many eyes on this as possible. Write articles for the Advocate's Voice. We have a great resource with really high-end SEO services where you can write articles and submit them to the Advocate's Voice and get this story seen. And lastly, support candidates that represent the people and who will stand up to special interests and support these kinds of initiatives. Do you guys have any other ideas to share?
I was going to say, if people show up to the meetings in person, that makes a big impact on city council. I've seen just 20 people show up and they are overwhelmed and they will bend over backwards to feel like you've been heard, and do something and at least try some sort of action. So just showing up is a great tool for us. I mean, it takes some time out of your day, obviously, but it's totally worth it. If you can just get 20 people there, it's crazy because people don't show up like that.
Right. And to piggyback off that, public comment is towards the beginning. So it's not like you're sitting through 6 hours of meeting like you would be at a commission meeting. If you show up to the City of Titusville meeting, you can pop in and pop out and be done within 20 minutes. And you're right. It is, I think the most frustrating part is like, and that's the next discussion we're getting into is the fuel plant discussion. But we really need, we're not asking you to go to every single meeting. You can watch them online and stay informed. I am asking you to do that. But when we have a call to action and we say, we really need people in these seats, you don't have to go up and speak. Most people are intimidated by that. But what really counts and really matters is that you fill that room. It makes a tremendous difference because then the city council knows all eyes are on them. If you have 100 people, those 100 people are going to go back and tell their hundreds of family members and their neighbors and so forth. And that's what the city council doesn't want. So they're more likely to represent the people. We've been told numerous times, not by the City of Titusville representatives, but other representatives that, oh, well, it's just 5 of you. It's the same 5 people. And after time, they don't value those same 5 voices. What really gets them stirred up is when you have hundreds of voices coming together and that unity, and that really matters as a community.
Well, and out of 15, it was approximately 15,000 people that voted for the right to clean water in the city of Titusville. Out of that 15,000, I'm pretty sure that there's at least 100 that would be willing to show up. So that is important. And again, you know, people don't have to speak. But if you do, don't feel like you have to go up there and put on a production. You can prepare something. You can go up there and just speak from the heart. You can go up there and say one sentence. Just express yourself in some way. It is so vitally important. And again, you can write your city council members. You can write the mayor. You can do that. You can put it in regular mail. You can email them. You know, they are accessible and they work for us.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the next subject, which is the fuel plant discussion. I want to show some clips before we get into that discussion. I'm going to have Libby explain it so that way we can bring everybody up to date, because there's a lot of people in Brevard County that have no clue that this is happening. So let me go ahead and play that. I'm going to share my screen. That'll make it easier for me. We're going to do a news report from Channel 2 first. So give me a moment.
Brought to you earlier this week, Volusia County called a special meeting tonight for a proposed fuel storage and distribution facility planned in Ormond Beach. Residents showed up in droves at tonight's meeting to stop the plan in its tracks. West 2's Luana Munoz was there and brings us the latest developments.
You know, Michelle, it was a packed house here in Volusia County in the administrative building. Some 500 people showed up, packing the rotunda area, trying to get inside of this meeting. Many of them were from Ormond Beach, and all of them said that they do not want this so-called fuel farm in their backyard. And council members were equally thrown off by this proposed plan. Take a look. Before residents could voice their concerns, Volusia council members said they weren't aware that Belvedere Terminals Company LLC, the company behind the project, was even doing this until recently. Not even the county's Growth and Resource Management Office was aware.
As far as I'm aware, the only time we've learned about it was through the Hometown News application.
Ormond Beach residents were shocked.
As leaders, you should know exactly what is happening when it's happening. Shame on you for not doing your job that we elected you to do.
The proposed fuel terminal would use 60 acres to house an above-ground tank farm that could hold up to 20 million gallons of fuel, and all of it would be next to neighborhoods, an area where kids play, and an airport.
These are who you're failing. These kids play soccer at the soccer complex.
Belvedere Terminals had previously said their top concern is the safety and well-being of Ormond Beach residents. But if something goes wrong, residents don't believe they nor local government can fix it.
The citizens of Ormond Beach Fire Department, and Volusia County Fire Rescue will be dealing with this. We don't have the resources. We don't have the hospital capability to handle an MCI incident.
Residents cited traffic concerns with fuel tankers coming and going, a drop in their property values, and the health risks that could come if Belvedere Terminals moves forward. Councilmember Troy Kent, who represents Ormond Beach, says he'll do everything he can to fight it.
This location, it is wildly inappropriate for a fuel farm. I'm against it. I think all 42,000 residents of Ormond Beach are against it.
And just to be clear, about 11,500 people have signed an online petition to stop Belvedere Terminals from coming here. Ultimately, tonight, council members filed a motion to see if there's another location within the county where this place can move to, or where Belvedere Terminals can move their project to. Council members also warned the Office of Growth and Resource Management. They let them know, look, anytime you see something of this magnitude, whether you think it's going to actually come here or not, to let them know sooner moving forward so that they can try to stop it sooner than later. Reporting live in Volusia County, I'm Luana.
Wow. Okay, so actually it was a year ago that the city of Ormond Beach employees and County of Volusia employees met with representatives of Belvedere Petroleum. So they have known about this for over a year. However, upper management, the directors, of course, are saying they knew nothing about it and were not involved in those conversations, and they would not disclose the names, the identities of the employees who were. It's really frustrating because we've now missed the window to object, to intervene. We had 14 days because the only requirement they have is to publish the notice in a publication of general circulation, which they chose the Hometown News, which is not probably the most popular publication in Volusia County. That would probably be the News Journal. But in any event, that is how they did it. That's not an excuse for why we missed this deadline. I'm a paralegal. So what I do is monitor deadlines. I do litigation and I get the lawsuits. It's my job to not just calendar that, but get that to the client immediately. Why? Because we'll get a default. They'll get a default judgment, and I will have to answer to my boss because he will have to file a malpractice claim with his legal malpractice insurance carrier. That is exactly what happened in this case. It was the county attorney's responsibility. There are 3 or 4 attorneys that are watching over county business, and you mean to tell me that not one of them, and I'm going to specifically call out Michael Dyer because he is our county attorney, and you heard him say, we didn't know about it. You should have known about it. You have paralegals in your firm. I used to work with you, Michael Dyer, in your law firm. I know how your law firm works. I used to monitor deadlines, and I know you know how to monitor deadlines. And that means you know that there are certain ways that you can serve process, and one of the ways is through publication. So you have to watch those publications. They come in every morning. There's usually an office staff person that pulls it up and sends it to the appropriate attorney or paralegal to address, and that's how it works. A breakdown happens, such as this. Now the county's on the hook, and now they're saying, well, Belvedere will sue if you don't uphold the permit or you try to intervene now because of the Burt Harris Act. If you try to do something to limit their use of the property, that's going to limit the property's income potential, and they would have a claim under the Burt Harris Act. Well, I would go so far as to say you're looking at the wrong claimant here, because you've got thousands of claimants in that area who will also have a claim under the Burt Harris Act if this facility goes forward. So they really need to stop taking all these arguments for why their hands are tied, and they need to put the onus on the county attorneys to do their job and find a way to fight this. That was not proper notice, number one. Number two, they need to do an investigation and find out how this happened. How did a petroleum storage facility get slated? Even a conversation should have been on high alert, and no one was alerted in upper management. No one on the council was alerted. So no one could intervene or even be watching it. So there was some sneaky shenanigans going on here. I'm just going to call it out like it is. These are developers. There's developer money involved. And where there's money involved, we know that there's usually corruption. And that's how these things happen. And people are always caught off guard and they say, we never saw it coming. How did we not get notice of this? It's by design.
Watching this, what concerns me, I want to say how incredibly proud I am of the community for coming together. You saw that woman speaking. That's what
300. There was around 300 residents that came out.
That is what it takes. And I worry for Brevard County. We should always be worried about what is happening in our neighboring communities, because it can happen to us, and we should care about our neighbors. And that could potentially come to our county. And would we have 300 residents standing up to it? I don't know. Brevard County is notorious for accepting other people's pollution. And the perfect example of that is South Florida's biosolids. They allowed South Florida to ship all of their biosolids up here, and then they spread it all over our unincorporated land in Port St. John, which has extremely high levels of harmful chemicals in it, and it gets into our waterways. So that's just an example. But we need to be paying attention to this in Brevard County. I think our other neighboring communities should be paying attention to this. I commend the community there for showing up when it counts, because as you can see, those 300 people, they got all of those council members.
Of those 300 people, only 39 spoke. And that's all that needed to speak. I mean, it was so passionate, and I cried. I cried throughout that hearing. I don't know about the rest of you. That's my home. That's my home. That's where I'm from. So it was moving. It was so moving to see them come out. And that's what it takes. When there's only 4 or 5 people in the audience, the council generally thinks it's not an important issue because no one showed up. Even if you don't speak, you've got to show up. There were 300 people there. They did not all have to speak. They showed up in solidarity.
And I want to point out too, like, this didn't happen overnight. When you see a city or a county start doing things like changing land use, pay attention to that, because they're not just doing it because they feel like it. They're doing it because there's a reason. Something is coming next. So when you see things like, oh, this conservation area is now going to be an area for industry, you know that there are already plans in the works, ready to go. And we may not know what that is, but the city attorneys, the city managers, even the councilmen may possibly already know what is going to take place. Even if that land hasn't actually even sold to anybody yet, they know who's interested in it. They know what those plans are, even if those plans are just something that's in a blueprint, in an idea, or in a, the will of a company or an industry to do something. So, those things, like I said, it didn't happen overnight. And that was probably in the works for years before it was approved.
Well, so let's talk about the 4 years. Okay, so I know that they bought the property last year, but they could have been looking at it for longer than that. I know the attorney that actually got the change in the zoning, and nobody questioned why, actually did that in preparation for the purchase. So once he got the change in the zoning is when the purchase happened. So that's kind of the backstory there. This company, Belvedere, just so happens to be a subsidiary company from, I think it's APCO, ATPCO or something like that. I'll put a story up for it. But basically, their job is to go out and scout locations for still storage facilities. They do it all over the country, the continent, basically Canada, Mexico, everywhere. And they actually advertise that they do this for the secondary kind of market, to have it locally readily available. Actually, there's just a surplus of fuel in this country, truthfully speaking, and they're running out of places to put it. And so coming to a community near you, our council amended their motion to seek alternative locations and discuss with this property owner alternative locations. They amended the motion to not look for alternative locations just in Volusia County, but start looking outside of Volusia County. We don't want it in Volusia County. And I'm sorry to say, Brevard County, I have a feeling they're coming your direction. They need to be by a railway. That is what they advertise. They've got to be on the railway. So where does that put them? Going right down the East Coast. Where's the next major area? Brevard County. They're not going to go north. They've got Jacksonville.
Yeah, and I think I saw that used when they were talking about it at city council. It was in 2006 or something, and it was like it used to be owned by Flagler Development Company or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm on the City of Titusville Planning and Zoning Commission. Volunteer. We volunteer. We don't get paid, but it takes forever to do a zoning change, about 6 months or more. And that's so the city doesn't just start one of those just willy-nilly because, oh yeah, we want extra work and we want to future plan something. They don't do that. Someone's come to them with an idea and then they start the process because it involves a lot of people on the staff. The Planning and Zoning Commission, you have to be briefed on it too. So there's staff there to tell them about it. And then it goes to see, there's like, I think it depends on what it is, but they have to do like 2 readings or, before city council can even vote on it. So, and then they have to like advertise it for like 2 weeks before the meeting happens. So people have the ability to come to the meeting. So there's a lot of, laws involving how they have to go about doing it. So it takes forever. So, which is a good thing. But yeah, if they're starting to do something, just know there's something behind it. It's not just because they want to. Yeah.
I think we're planning to have this conversation further with some organizations that are in Volusia County that could speak more on that and some other issues. We're bringing some advocates in from across the state into these discussions, and we're going to be doing live streaming more, and we're uploading a lot of this to podcast forms too. So I want to move us along.
I'm really sorry about the cat, you guys. She had surgery yesterday. I just want to say I'm letting her do her thing.
It's okay.
I can't put her in the room with Kepler. Kepler will hurt her.
We're all about having animals join us in these discussions. So
I know
I had cat issues a few weeks ago. So since we've discussed the right to clean water, this situation in Volusia, I really thought it would be great to end this conversation talking more about civic engagement, because I think that there's a lack of understanding in civic engagement that a lot of people don't want to admit. They don't understand how government works and that getting involved is intimidating for them. And I want us to be here as a resource. I want us to be here as a group of people who encourage and help people build that confidence. And personally, I am a firm believer in what makes a strong community is one that works together, shares resources and responsibilities and decision making. If not everyone in our community is a part of that process, then that's when you have the government making all of the decisions for you. And that's why civic engagement is so critical to get involved in. It's basically participating in politics in your community. It's an important part of our society, and you can build a stronger community by doing that, by getting involved and becoming a part of the change that we have been wanting to see. So starting off with lack of understanding. Maybe there's some commentary you guys have heard, such as statements that like, there's nothing that I can do about it anyway. So what's the point? That's one of the bigger ones that I think we often hear. What would you say to somebody like that has that negative outlook because they're just so discouraged by what's going on today?
I hear it a lot, and it's disheartening because there's so much one person can do. I mean, individually, our voices are very strong. Collectively, they're powerful. I say that all the time. It's my favorite catchphrase when people come to me with that, because individually, you have a very strong voice. A lot of people have had their voices muffled. They've been beaten down for whatever reason. Life is hard. And, just surviving sometimes is all people think they can do. But if they only realized, it would be so much easier to survive if they created a community that they could thrive in and not just survive in. And all they would really need to do is get engaged. And it sounds intimidating, but it's a step, one step at a time. Go to a council meeting, just sit there, take notes, observe body language. You'll learn very quickly who's who. It won't take but a few council meetings to learn who's who and what their agendas are and who your champions are on certain causes. And then you'll find the courage to shake a hand and say, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I live here, and I appreciated your comments, and this is the problem that I've noticed, and what are your thoughts on that? And you just begin to engage and have a normal dialogue. It's really not rocket science. You don't have to have a special dictionary to carry on a conversation. These people are all human beings, and they live a life just like you. They work, they pay their bills, they feed their families, they have health problems. They want clean water too. They might be in a tougher position because, they're working in a situation where, they happen to be part of creating that pollution. But I absolutely know this. They do not want to fight clean water. The employees, the staff, as far as the directors and managers, I can't speak to that. And the council, I can't speak to that. But the staff will be there. You can meet them. They're the ones doing the work in your city. You should meet your staff. You should meet your Park and Works director. You should meet your economic director. You should meet your waste management director. I don't know what your titles are all in Brevard County, but you should meet these people because they're actually who's running your city.
Yeah. And I think the people who who think their voice doesn't matter, but at the same time they think that if they speak up, they're intimidated by the people who might say something. I say to them, if you think your voice doesn't matter, but also if you speak up, that they will care what you say. So there's the conflict there. When you do say something, they do pay attention, they do listen, and that's why you might feel some anxiety about saying something, is because they are paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I I think you should go and speak as much. Even if you get up to the podium, say, "My name is blah blah, and I live here, and I'm against this. Thank you." That's you could just do that. I've seen people do it, and it's still impactful. And it also goes to show, hey, this is someone who doesn't want to get up here and talk, but they had the courage to walk up here and say something to our faces, and they sat back down, and they will notice that. They do notice that. So, yeah.
They do.
So I think that it's also really important for people to remember that, every major change in legislation, every major revolution that this country has seen started with an idea and one person speaking up. Everything started with one person. And so your voice might shake, but raise it anyway, because you're going to give somebody else the courage to say what they need to say. And the more you speak up, the more people come out. And we have watched this as Fight for Zero has grown, as Trash Talkers has grown. Like people do tend to say, oh my gosh, that person just said exactly what I was thinking. I want to go back them up, So you develop a camaraderie with fellow citizens. And that's a really good thing. And the other point that I want to make is you do not have to be an expert. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a scientist, a doctor, a geologist, an epidemiologist. You don't have to be any of those things. You don't have to be an engineer. You are a stakeholder in your community simply by living there. Just by living there. Your community, your water, your soil, the building, the taxes, everything has to do with you, and it impacts you directly. If you have children that go to school here, it impacts you directly. So you have a voice, and don't let anybody tell you that your lack of a degree or your lack of expertise in an area means that you shouldn't have a say-so or you shouldn't have a thought or an opinion, because that is absolutely wrong. You matter, your voice matters, your thoughts matter, your opinions matter, and your vote matters.
Watch any government meeting and see the elected officials speak. You will get a boost of confidence because you'll be like, "Oh wow, I'm smarter than this person." So I mean, it's a real confidence booster just watching government. I'm not calling out any specific person or anything. I'm just saying, just in general, watch any government body meeting, and you will find someone who was elected and somehow got elected to this position that does not want to know what's going on, and especially not some of the more important issues. They just can't grasp them, and I think you'll get a confidence boost just watching it. So,
yeah, I want to point out that all of us on this call, we weren't born knowing how to do this. We had to go through experience. We had to learn. We had to gain confidence as well to get involved with government and speaking at the podium and using our voices. Oftentimes, people, like you were saying, Elizabeth, that people think that you have to have a degree to be able to use your voice and be heard. And it's just simply not true. I didn't have education on government growing up. And it really makes me sad because I feel that there's a lot of people that really are unaware of how government works and how they can be involved. For me, it took me getting sick. It took me seeing an injustice, and for me to show up to that first meeting. It took me sitting in a seat. I did not speak for the first 10 meetings that I attended. I just sat, I observed, and the more I sat and watched what was happening and how the decisions were being made for my family and my children's future, I became impassioned with just, I need to speak and be a part of the decisions that are being made here tonight, eventually you will want to speak. You will want to be a part of those discussions because you realize what's at stake. I didn't know what was at stake. And so that's why we're always telling everyone, you need to just simply show up, even if you sit and you're just observing, because that's when what Libby was saying earlier, you can see who the key players are, who's got your best interest at heart. You truly don't know a candidate, you truly don't know a politician until you see their actions. I'm a big believer in actions speak louder than words. And how can you possibly know what actions they are taking if you are not paying attention to what is being done? You can't just go off of what people tell you. So that takes me to my next question.
Can I say something
Yeah,
before
go
you
ahead.
ask that question? Just to kind of touch on what both you and Elizabeth are saying about, so yeah, I didn't know how to speak in public either. In fact, I have performance anxiety. So I would like turn beet red and my mouth would get dry and I'd choke and start coughing profusely when I would speak in public. So that's why being a paralegal is great for me because I'm in the background. I don't have to, be on display. So when I started doing this, that was the big deterrent for me is I didn't want to be on camera. I never would have done this. I didn't want to be the person speaking. I wanted to get other people to do it. So I was looking for a hero and one wasn't coming. So I had no choice. And I got sick too, not as bad as you, Sal. You got cancer. I didn't, thank God. But I got sick and it chose me. And, sometimes they don't need to hear you be articulate. Sometimes they don't need to hear you be suave and sophisticated. Sometimes, like that woman with her 2 children at the county council meeting, you need to be passionate. You don't need to choose your words. You need to let your heart speak. You need to let your emotions speak. So really, that actually sometimes gets more attention than the person who comes up with a well-prepared speech.
And it's funny you say that because oftentimes I would much rather meet with my representatives, call my representatives, email my representatives, but there are those moments that I feel like I have to speak, and it's because as an advocate, you have a lot of people in the community that are depending on you to speak and kind of lead that way and to help basically support them. And that's kind of our role when we go into these community meetings. And that's why we don't go to physically go to every single, we possibly couldn't. If that was the case, I'm invited to West Coast, Middle Florida, Northwest Florida. I'm invited all over the state. There's no way I'm going to be able to make every meeting, but sometimes writing and just sitting in that room to show solidarity is just as impactful. It shows that the community is together, they're cohesive, and that we're all on the same page. And that's what makes a community. We shouldn't be relying on the government to make these decisions for our families and our children's future. And unfortunately, that's what I've seen in our county. Unfortunately, we have way too many people sitting back saying, well, the government has my best interest at heart. The government will take care of it. And then they get upset after the fact because they go online and they say, my water bills were raised. My electric's high. And I'm like, well, we tried to tell you. They were talking about that in Tallahassee years ago. They're raising rates, but you have to be aware of what is going on, or else you can't move forward as a community together. We have to be informed and educated, and it takes a while getting involved. But I wanted to get into how do people make a difference? Still talking about civic engagement. One way that I say is the most basic way to engage with government is to vote. And then going hand in hand with that is not relying on organizations, endorsements, media, or friends to tell you who to vote for. We are intelligent enough and capable of researching each candidate, and we live in an age where this information is easily accessible. We need to be responsible for who we are supporting and for doing our due diligence. And, we're talking about voting for city council members, mayors, state legislators, governors, and members of Congress. They're all chosen by our vote, our popular vote.
Judges.
And this is a very alarming statistic. According to a 2018 Johns Hopkins University study, less than 20% of Americans could name their state legislators, and 1 in 3 cannot name their governor. That's scary.
Yeah.
Do you guys have other ways that they can get involved civically and make a difference?
I think serving on a board. Some people think they look at the requirements of a board. It is voluntary, and I'll tell you what. There's some boards that just don't have anyone on there because they have those requirements, and people think, oh, they take them seriously. They don't, especially if they don't have people volunteering for it. So just try to sign up for a board. I didn't join a board in Titusville until after I ran for city council in 2020 and lost. And then I was like, I need to still participate somehow. So I was like, I'll sign up for planning and zoning. I have no planning background, but I'm an intelligent person. I'm a computer programmer, and I can read. And I like reading laws. So I got involved with, I finally got appointed as an alternate. And that's how I do that. You can sine wave too for issues and people that you like, and you'll be surprised how many people you meet out there that are like-minded that you can connect with, and then you can make a difference that way too, I think. And then you're building your own coalition of people that have a like goal of yours. I think that's a great way for people who don't want to speak. And you just sit out there with a sign. And it's sometimes hot out there, but it's worth it, I think. So
I think one of the things that we can do is research. Know before you walk into the voting booth, know who you are voting for. Just because that person sat in that seat for the last 20 years doesn't necessarily mean they're good at their job or they're qualified. It just means they kept getting voted in. You can find out who is funding your candidates. You can find out.
Need to find out.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but that's really find out.
Yes.
The whole story.
We do have a system where large political donations can be made. And oftentimes the people that end up getting in those seats on all levels of government aren't there to truly represent the people. They're there to represent the people that gave them money. So, pay attention to those things. You can very simply do a Google search and find out who is funding your representatives and who is funding who is on those ballots. I encourage people to do that. I think that is what a responsible voter should be doing. And the other thing is, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. I understand that political conversations can be very, very difficult. So if I can give a little bit of advice as somebody who really has engaged across both parties and in no party, stick to the issues. Stick to the issues. When you're talking about something that is impacting you, find out who made the laws that either caused you harm or helped you. Find out who funded them, why, and how. I mean, those are such important questions. So, don't walk in there on name recognition, Thomas Jefferson, that's not. There was an old movie about that, wasn't there? Where the guy ran and he just won on name recognition alone. That was, we can do better. And if we want better, we're going to have to do better because they work for us. This is a hiring process. These elections are. And if we want them to work for us, then we need to fully vet them and look at those resumes and find out where they're coming from and what their agenda is.
And I want to add to that, because oftentimes the general public doesn't realize the type of tactics that are used in the media, advertising, marketing wise. So again, just going back to what you said, research is so important to do. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We often see people are too scared to ask questions, but if you're doing your research, you should know the answer to those questions before you even ask them. That's how you can see if someone's being genuine or not. Right, Libby? I mean, you know where I'm going with that. I think obviously my big passion is education. I think another way that people can get civically engaged is by teaching. They can transfer their skills and knowledge to someone who can benefit from it in the community. That there is nothing wrong with informing and educating and sharing your skills and helping others in that sense. I also think that goes hand in hand with take a historical tour of your hometown. Just because you live here doesn't mean you fully understand the local history, and history is important, especially when it comes to getting civically engaged. And that also takes me to travel. If you have the ability, go travel, experience other cultures, see how other places handle similar situations to what your community is facing. And if you can't physically travel, reach out to people in other places of the world to ask them how they've combated these similar issues, whether it's with pollution, like we're dealing with the Indian River Lagoon. It could be something as simple as reaching out to the west coast of Florida and asking them, how did you guys turn Tampa Bay around? And that's how you can just learn. Just keep taking in all of that. Read books, watch documentaries, apply yourself. Don't be afraid to apply yourself and to find those issues you're passionate about, as well as the issues you know nothing about.
And just start somewhere. It doesn't matter where, because there's so much information on so many topics. Link up with someone that you think is a mentor, that you can see as a mentor, whether it be an organization like Fight for Zero and Stell and Elizabeth and us. If you like what we do, we're here. We're always open, and we love new blood. We love when new people come on that we can share the burden with, and that's wanting to walk the walk with us. But there are other organizations that do great work also, but please investigate those organizations. You'll find out very quickly who's who. There are good and bad, and I'm not going to name names, but just do your homework, just like you would with your issues with your city or county. Do your homework in the organizations that you adhere to, and find a mentor. Find somebody that you can, link arms with and take the journey with. I mean, that's what Stella, Elizabeth, and I are doing. We've kind of linked arms, and we're great. And we have a lot of friends. I've got a lot of friends in Volusia County, and we've got Suzanne and Becca and Chris and Jenny and everybody up there that's doing great work. So you'll start to have groups in every city, in every county, but you got to start somewhere. So shake someone's hand, say, I'm really interested in the work you do. How can I get involved? And I guarantee you, they will have great suggestions for you.
And they're regular people. They're regular people. I think, Chris, you've been in the city hall there in Titusville and sitting across the aisle from me, and everybody in that room, they're just regular people. The people running Speak Up Titusville, they are just regular people that live in this city. None of us are, kings, queens. None of us have any kind of massive power. We're just people that care. And I think that a lot of times you find when you get involved in one kind of section of advocacy, you end up kind of expanding into things. In my case, I started off because I'm super passionate about trash. I cannot stand to see the garbage all over this county, all over this country, really. And that, opened my eyes to something that I had no idea on. And then I met Stell, and that was the first time I'd heard about PFAS chemicals. Well, that comes from plastic, and the plastic's on the ground. You start kind of putting these issues together, and really it all comes down to, and as far as environmental advocacy goes, whether you're dealing with environmental health or or just the environment alone, it's all intertwined. It's all together. You can't have clean air, clean soil, clean water without everything impacting everything else. And we're all one big organism basically on this planet. So you do find that it is very fluid in this world. When you start speaking up for yourself, automatically you start wanting to speak up for other people as well.
And if there's an issue, be open-minded, because there are advocates out there. There are groups of people that decide to organize and they put in the time. And the perfect example of that is the golf course and the rezoning situation in Titusville. You've got a group of people, neighbors that came together that are super passionate about that issue. And if they're knocking on your door, don't shut the door in their face and tell them, well, there's nothing I could do about it. The developers are going to do whatever they want anyway. And because that's being closed-minded. Be open-minded and figure out, well, what is the action you're taking? What is the solution? Because you may be surprised. You may be able to do something about it, but by shutting the door immediately, you are shutting down those opportunities to take real action to protect your community, your neighbors, your family. So I just brought that up as an example.
Well, did you see they sent out an email and they surveyed people with that group, that Royal Oaks, and they got the results of that. They got 680 people to reply. People who had email addresses from registered voters, right? 680 people. And they asked them, some of their demographics and stuff. And then they broke down into 6 different categories of what they were, if they were not concerned at all, a little worried, or very worried. Over 50% in each one of those was very worried. Over 50% in each one of those, of 680 people registered to vote in Titusville, said that they were very worried. Over 60% of water supply. Over 70% were very worried about drainage and sewer. Over 50% were very worried about school. Over 60% were very worried about access to emergency services. Over 70% were very worried about traffic. And over 60, almost 70% were very worried about quality of life. And this was all about development questions. So it was great that people answered this survey. It's obviously not the most scientific thing because it's done by some private citizens. It's not a good sampling of people, but this is a great snapshot that you can say, all right, normal people seem to be very worried about a lot of.
It's not a vote of confidence, that's for certain.
Yes. So, and I'll share this guy. I shared this with you. I forgot to send it out to you guys, but I'll send this to you because I asked the city clerk the next day, hey, can you give me that copy of that she shared with a citizen came up to the city council on Tuesday and shared this report with them. So hopefully this was impactful to them, and it has some great stats on it. So yeah, that's what you can do. That's what you can accomplish, and you don't have to make a survey like this. Just participate in it. Just answer. If you see that email, they want your opinion, and it's local. Let's not just focus on federal and state and county. City is super important. Super important. Answer to these questionnaires if you get one. Give your opinion, and we need that.
So
we need it.
So since we're 8 minutes over our hour time frame, so I just want to end this with any kind of updates. First, I want to point out that Christopher Childs, that's on here, this panel tonight, I want everyone to visit his shop in Titusville called the Christmas Shop. You do amazing work. Do you have any ending comments you would like to say? Would you like to highlight anything you guys are doing at the shop? Please feel free.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of custom ornaments and stuff there, and I'm passionate. I tried to do a custom ornament for Fight for Zero to raise money. All the proceeds go to Fight for Zero, and I just like being creative. But also next year, I will be running for city council, so I will.
Is that City of Titusville?
City of Titusville. Yes.
Okay.
Is that an official announcement?
That's my inaugural announcement of that
All
publicly.
right.
So I have not filled out the paperwork
Good news
yet, so I'm not
here.
at a candidate yet, but I will be filing for that. It's a little early to file for that. They only have the packet ready for a city. Counties, they're all over it and stuff because they have to do a lot of stuff before primary. But yes, I just want to make a difference, and I learned a lot on planning and zoning, and I learned running for city council in 2020. I met Stell, I met some other great people, some other advocates, and I've learned a lot from listening to them. And also, just standing up there and trying to speak for. I'm a programmer. I'm not used to being out front of people either. I did work for hospitals and I talk to doctors a lot, but I'm not, a public speaker either. I don't mind it, but I start talking really fast, so I'm trying to dial that down a little bit. So I'll try and be, I'm trying to think of it, but I think everyone should try to do what they can, and I think I really like talking to people and getting people to agree on things, and I have a 4-year-old daughter. I have 3 adult children, but I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I want clean water for her, and I think that's important, and I want to fight for it. So there you go.
Elizabeth?
So I just really want to touch 1 second on, I saw a comment come across here from someone, Virgil, over across the pond in Manchester, England. I thought that was pretty cool. This world is not as big as what we think it is. So hello, Virgil. Thanks for tuning in here. That's pretty cool. And just an update real quick on the situation with Walmart. I had a couple comments throughout the week that the mess had been cleaned up on the Merritt Island Walmart. There was a half-ass effort. A lot of trash was just kind of mowed over, but it is still very much along, especially the west side of that property. So I'm working on some solutions there. As far as the Titusville Walmart goes, that also has not been cleaned up. They let the notice of code enforcement violation go over. When the officers showed up there, they pretended like they didn't know that they got a code enforcement violation. He has now given them 10 days, which we're on 8 days now. The clock's ticking. And we'll see what happens. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what code enforcement does in a situation like that where something's just been ignored, but hopefully that was enough. I know that he did get in contact with the corporate office. I know that he spoke directly to the store manager, so you can't deny that there's a problem there. And thank you, Stell. If anybody watching, please feel free to call that Titusville Walmart and let them know to clean up their trash.
So I have a question about that, and you may not know the answer, but I would like to know the answer to this. So maybe we can do a little digging to find out what the procedure is.
Okay.
Because I know it's different from city to city based on your ordinances and what they do is their next step. For instance, in the city of Edgewater, where I'm from, if there's nothing done, not only does a fine then become imposed, but a stop work order is issued, and the business cannot open for business until the problem's been remedied, and code enforcement comes back out and removes the stop work order. So I don't know how that works in Titusville.
I really don't know. I honestly, in the last couple of weeks, I've been working so much, I haven't had time to truly dig into it. It would not surprise me if we have very similar laws, but on the other hand, I think it's also kind of up to the officer's discretion on how that ends up being. It's like, for instance, they were already over the deadline for the first notice to get it cleaned up. And he did extend to them, out of his own courtesy, an extra 10 days and told them, hey, you're saying you don't know that this happened. I'll give you 10 days to clean it up. So I am not sure, but that is an excellent question.
Also, get some contact information for the code enforcement office and have everybody contact code enforcement. Enough's enough. This business needs a stop work order until this could be remedied in a day.
Absolutely.
There is no excuse for this. This is them thumbing their nose at the city of Titusville's government and saying, yes, I have a business license to operate here, but I don't care that you control it. It's totally disrespectful for a business to do that, and they should be held accountable.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I've been working with Officer Frank Lewis at the Titusville PD Code Enforcement. Code enforcement is part of law enforcement. So it does go through the Titusville Police Department. So it's pretty easy to get a hold of these guys. Frank Lewis is a great guy, very friendly and personable, and he's paid attention to the details of this. I feel like he's doing a good job, but it never hurts to have more citizens getting involved and speaking up. We got a lot of people in Titusville.
Sometimes what I find with code enforcement is when it's a conglomerate like Walmart, $1 million corporation, I find that they are afraid to exercise their authority. And I would like to encourage your code enforcement officer to please use his authority and not be intimidated by this company, because it is very intimidating to be in that position to know this company could buy and sell you, basically.
Right. Well, and I think in general, not just code enforcement, I think in general, I think cities, I think individual people are very afraid of some of these huge corporations. They're afraid of what will be said, or retaliation, or being sued, or whatever. And I don't know how to remedy that. I just know that there's laws there for a reason.
I'm to the point where I think there needs to be attention brought to Walmart if this isn't remedied anytime soon. And that means maybe we do a massive cleanup and let them trespass every single one of us that's trying to clean up the trash.
Yep.
I want you to do that. I want to make them do it. I think we should use this as a test case and force it through.
And really, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean,
after this call, actually.
Right. I'm cleaning up trash. I do not encourage anybody to really go out there and do that, because seriously, that water is disgustingly, it is toxic. I believe it is not safe. It's in an area where, I was literally walking around razors. There's needles in the area, so I wouldn't want anybody to I just
think it needs to be made clear, because there's a lot of comments coming in saying, why don't you clean it up then? And
it's a liability issue for Walmart.
It's because Walmart has told us that they will trespass us if you start cleaning up the trash. I want to make that very clear. So there's been a lot of commentary regarding this, and I guess we can get into that another day.
Yep.
But just follow Space Coast Trash Talkers to get more information on what's going on with Walmart, because she's going to be doing updates on that throughout the week. I want to go ahead and get us wrapped up. Libby, do you have any updates?
I do. So Belvedere, Petroleum, we still need petitions. We still need letters. We need letters to DEP. There are a lot of call to action posts. I'll come back on the lives and Facebook and stuff and make sure that the information is on each of these feeds. So please sign that petition. It doesn't matter where you are. Please sign that petition.
Awesome. And I'm going to Tallahassee to, meet up with Libby, and we're doing some stuff up there. I'm going to Washington, D.C., and we have numerous community meetings coming up. This is super important because the first meeting, there's going to be a ton of data coming out from our 3-year study that we did with the University of Florida. We have another meeting that we're going to be meeting with the people impacted by contamination in Brevard County and our legal team. That's all I can say about that right now. There is something big coming, and I'm ready to get some justice for the cancer victims. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you for coming on, Christopher. And we are going to end this live. Thank you for everyone that has joined us. Please continue to comment below, and we look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Thank you.